Welcome, Lethbridge in southern Alberta, and wherever you are in the world, you are listening live to Feel the Beat with DJB here on Jess FM in downtown Lethbridge. As promised, our in-studio guest today, Amy Bronson, Liberal candidate for Lethbridge federally. Thank you for coming in today. We appreciate having you in this morning.
Hi, Brent. Thank you for having me. It is so cool to be here on Jess FM. What an awesome local initiative. Love it. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, no, it's our pleasure. So you're a first-time politician. This is the first time you've ever run for politics, right?
Outside of student politics, absolutely. So I did do a little bit of that sort of in university and high school where it would come up. But absolutely, this is my first time running with a major party in a major election, and especially as a federal candidate here in Lethbridge, Alberta. So yeah, I'm happy to be here and kind of talk you through any questions you have, just as I am with anyone in the community when you meet me.
Yeah, awesome. So you're initially from Lethbridge, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is home. So I was born in Calgary. Sometimes it gets out there. I was born in Lethbridge. That is, I'm just gonna correct that. I was not born in Lethbridge. So if that's a major criteria for you, that's important to be honest. So I'll be very honest, but I moved here when I was very, very small and attended elementary school, junior high, high school here, worked in various businesses throughout the community, was involved in performing arts in Lethbridge, and have kind of maintained that connection. My family is here. These are my roots, and this is home. This is where I live now. So yes, I've left at times. No, I was not born here. However, this is home.
Nice, yeah. Well, that's great. Well, it's great to have you back in Lethbridge. And I understand you're also a pretty good fried Mars bar cook, too.
So I had a great chat. Dave Mamel at the Lethbridge Herald got that one out of me. And I'll tell you what that's all about, actually. So deep fried Mars bars are a very interesting snack food that I'm not sure are very healthy for you, but sometimes you have to have a little fun. And when we have the most fun in town at Whoop Up Days. So I worked for a catering organization that was out of a lot of the exhibition park for a long time, and we had a snack shack at the Whoop Up Days, and so yes, I managed the snack shack when we had deep fried Mars bars, and that's it was fun. I did a lot of catering and work throughout the community at different cool events, but Whoop Up Days is really dear to all our hearts, and I have fond memories there. So if you ever had a deep fried Mars bars at Whoop Up Days, might have been me.
That's awesome. So, great Mars bar cook, singer-songwriter, politician. Wow, you got your hands in a lot of things. But what made you specifically get into politics and want to pursue that?
That is, that's a great question. I ask myself that too, because it isn't always for the faint of heart, right? Like, it's certainly a very interesting career choice and also opportunity to really serve the public in what I think is very essential to the core functions of our society in democracy. Through our democratic process, our institutions, these are complicated things built by humans that take humans to kind of navigate us through. So that's a bit of a philosophical answer, which I'm gonna let us go there a little bit on your show. It's a bit open, but frankly, the honest answer is I think that Lethbridge deserves a lot more federal attention. I think that Lethbridge needs active, competitive campaigning from very strong candidates that are they're respectful, positive campaigns that put the community first, and someone who understands what is happening outside of Lethbridge and is able to have dialogue across parties, across jurisdictions, across different businesses and industries to coordinate, collaborate, and get it done right for this area.
Yeah, and that's great because I think Lethbridge has felt in the past that we've gone unnoticed, right? No one's there to represent, Little Lethbridge, and I'm sure some of the smaller towns in Alberta feel the same way in a lot of ways, right?
Absolutely.
And to have someone that does it, that's great. What is the process? Like, okay, you're an MP going to Ottawa.
Right.
So what is the process? Lethbridge issues, this is the issue. How does it get addressed? What happens when it gets there and in order for it to get addressed?
Right. So right now I'm a political candidate. So and I'm running to become the next member of parliament. So we know that right now we have a member of parliament for the Lethbridge riding. The Lethbridge riding includes the city of Lethbridge. Let's start just explaining where we are and what that means. What is a riding? So our system, and most people are thinking about this and understand, but the ridings are totally different federally and provincially. So Lethbridge City is in the federal riding. We also have Coaldale, Barons, Nobleford, Colehurst, the areas around them that are agricultural, predominantly farming now, right? So there's urban core with rural kind of a donut around it, and it's a beautiful, interesting city, region, and politically really diverse too. So you start with that. You start about thinking, well, what's actually in this riding? And the representative for this riding, their role is to understand the community from all sides. Think about what are our major industries. Think about what are our major social issues. When I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about putting Lethbridge first. And Lethbridge includes that riding boundaries. The whole thing's called Lethbridge. And putting Lethbridge first to me means thinking about what are our assets here? What are our real strengths, and what kind of things can we capitalize on and make sure we are promoting them, bringing increased prosperity, expanding them, bringing more employment in those areas, because it's going to work well if we work with those actual assets we have here. We don't want to just think about what's happening in Edmonton and what's happening way up north. We don't want to think about what's happening in the United States. Those things are interconnected, and we don't throw them out. But we really think about, okay, this area has agriculture. This area has public services. This area has excellent educational institutions that we can capitalize on. This area has a very strong small business community. And that's important to me. So think about what are our positive assets, things we need to promote and strengthen. 2, think about what problems we really have and be honest about them. Look them in the eye. Listen to people when they're telling you what they are, because those problems fall at the city level, the province, as well as the federal level. And from my position as a candidate, and what I think as a member of parliament should be doing, is being frank about those problems and looking across every level of them. So we look at our assets, we look at our problems, and then we think, okay, what are the policies of the government, and how do we coordinate them and make sure the funding is known to the community, and the issues with programs, policies, legislative changes, all of those things are brought through the process. Now, my belief is that this can be done whether you are in the ruling party, the party with the majority as we have now, the Liberal Party, or if you're in opposition. And the opposition's job is to, of course, critique the dominant party right now and make sure that they are finding holes in what they're doing, bringing good information, and that advocacy can be done and should be done no matter what party your member of parliament is from. So that's what I want to do. That's what I believe the job is. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that is. And I think that's important, having those checks and balances, because, people oftentimes get really upset because they feel that their issues, what they want you to listen to, are going unnoticed or unaddressed, right? And here in Lethbridge, there's a lot of people today, and because it has affected small businesses, that have concerns about the safe injection sites, the opioid crisis, that type of thing, right?
Sure.
Even locally, jobs. The unemployment rate in Alberta might be low, but it's still difficult to find a job in Lethbridge. Even at a certain age, say person over 40, right? Or person, that doesn't have experience. A younger person starting out, it's difficult to find a job. Agriculture has issues because they've felt in the past that their concerns have gone unnoticed, right? In Ottawa by past Liberal governments, even in some cases past Conservative governments. So how would you address those issues for Lethbridge in order to answer them for people that bring them up?
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to start by saying, let's talk about the role of the campaign and the democratic functions about raising issues just briefly, and then dive really into, let's talk about the opioid crisis, let's talk about jobs, let's talk about advocating for our agriculture and how that works.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, so
sure.
we'll do that.
You betcha.
So when I think about getting all of these issues brought forward, the campaigning part of our democracy, you know, bringing ideas across different parties. We use the party structure because it functions, it gives some coordination. You can get really good ideas that cross a lot of different groups, and people work together. You can do it independently too. It's a bit more challenging in our current system. So when we have the candidates are able to, throughout the campaign, raise those issues and increase that dialogue with the current member of parliament and the other parties, so we can really see different aspects of the community come out throughout the campaign, advocate, sort of get that informal consultation process that I think is really cool. And it's amazing to speak to people at their doors. We'll talk about that later. It's
sure.
amazing, and I think it's essential work. So from that perspective, I also want to say that, yeah, you know, any party, you know, it's not the party itself is paying attention to its members and to the people advocating through it and writing to them, talking. And it's the work of the local member of parliament to listen and advocate and channel that information. So, and, you know, this is also, people will often say things like, oh, well, they'll only do something for this region because they voted for them.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical that governments only care about areas that vote for them. That's simpler because the member is a part of that team, so it's a bit easier. Maybe, I don't know, I haven't been in that job yet, but I don't believe that. I believe that, you know, let's say I win as a Liberal member and it becomes a Conservative government, I think I can still find effective communication channels. So that's a part of it. And when you have a government, a party that wins in perpetuity throughout all history, you have one party always winning, I guess I would just ask you, if there's no competition, does anybody advocate for you, or can they just sort of enjoy,
do anything they want?
Enjoy that sort of sense of authoritativeness.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of seeing extremely authoritative, unconsultative activity.
Yeah.
That's number one, I think. So, you know, we know that we've had kind of different versions of one party throughout all of Lethbridge's electoral federal history.
Yeah, and Alberta too, like totally.
Yeah.
But Lethbridge, yeah, it's staunchly conservative.
Exactly.
And then just recently with the provincial NDP,
Yeah.
but it got people's thinking changing a little bit because of the.
Well, you learn that you can go into that ballot box and, you know, it doesn't say the leaders of the party's names. It says somebody local. It says the person who talked to you and the person who you met or maybe watched on the local online radio show, which is kind of neat. And yeah, that's what I think. And I think that campaigning, regardless of the outcome of the election, the campaign is that effective role of accountability for the current representative.
Yeah.
And that's where we talk about our problems that we have in the city and our excellent kind of, you know, industries that we need to champion.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, and those are really vital, I think, for Lethbridge, because a lot of people, it affects those directly. Some things that are affected indirectly are things like, you know, environmental issues, right? What are Liberals' party policies on environmental issues and things like that you want people in Lethbridge to kind of get on board with, right? Which will, you know, propel that party into power, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to talk about the environment for a second? Okay, so the environment is on everyone's minds because it's where we live. It's what we eat, drink, breathe, sleep. This is our lives. This is where children are raised into. This is where we, you know, get our livelihoods, all of us. And the environment includes the oil industry, where many of our livelihoods in Alberta come from. Agriculture in Lethbridge is also, you know, as one of our major industries, we are so tied to that. So, you know, I think the Liberal government's action on climate change and the environment is something that resonates deeply with the vast majority of Canadians. Sometimes I get in trouble when I'm talking to people, not in trouble, but, you know, they express deep concern that it's not enough, you know, so you get people who don't want any because they don't, but I think everybody cares about the environment. Nobody wants it polluted. Nobody wants it destroyed. And if anybody were to say, yes, I'd like to destroy the environment, like that's not a conservative. The conservatives aren't saying that, right? Like, so it's not that I'm, you know, it's about who's actually protecting it. So we've seen the historic announcement about banning single-use plastics in a couple of years. I'm really excited about that. You know, I think that there's really great examples of looking back to, you know, I think about my grandparents, great-grandparents living in rural Alberta. You know, my great-grandparents moved near Grassy Lake. They pushed some greeneries together to build a house, and they had raised 10 kids during the Depression, and they weren't throwing away plastic bags. So, you know, we don't want to go back to that sense of poverty at the time. We don't want to go back to that lack of access. You know, our system is amazing to reflect on since then, but we can look at sort of the way our grandmothers made our lunches. You know, my grandmother put sandwiches in wax paper. We have water bottles that we reuse. You know, we have jars, we have things like that. And that's, you know, that's a simple, you know, it's a bit complicated, and I think it'll phase in over time. Businesses will adapt. It's also a simple one because it is so direct, and it gets that plastic out of the ocean. You know, you go down to the river bottom for a walk, there's so much garbage. And that's going to be gone, not because somebody went and picked it up, but because it's no longer a part of our society and our day-to-day garbage making.
And the reason why I brought that up is because a lot of times Lethbridge, it takes Lethbridge a long time to change their thinking. You know, we think of provincially the NDP came in, right? But how many years did we have Conservative, right? So to bring new ideas in, it's always tough. So getting them to buy into what you feel strongly about, you know, to address their situations, how would you do that specifically? Like, what are you?
Well, I think, you know, there's the idea that change can be a discomfort for us because we get habitual. We're human beings, but we also work together. You know, my belief in the government is that we kind of collectively work from different viewpoints. It's a way to get people to advocate and shape sort of where our lives are is within our country, and you know, interacting with the government, whether you are happy or not, you have that freedom to be critiquing it, the freedom to want more, and the freedom to want it to stay the same. So evaluating what we don't want to have change is key. I think we don't want to see, you know, anyone who's doing well decline, right? Like, how do you maintain that? We don't want to see the environment get worse. We want to see it get better. And in many respects, the idea of environmental protection and viewing ourselves as, you know, stewards of the environment, as beneficiaries of the environment, that is ancient, not new, right? Like, we're not really changing the concept of the environment mattering. We're looking at it in our modern society and thinking, okay, the environment has always been something that to survive and thrive, you know, our ancestors cared for.
Right. Yeah, and that makes sense too. And that's a good way to say it, because, you know, being staunchly conservative, you know, I grew up on a farm, and you know, you have that mentality. You're stubborn. You hate change, right? And I think Lethbridge is big that way because the agricultural, they don't like change in a lot of ways. You know, the older people and stuff, it's hard to get them on board, right? And so, you know, sometimes it takes a lot of work to do that too.
Yeah, and that, you know, everyone is free to kind of feel about change the way they feel. I think I would also just say, I think change is, Lethbridge is a really unique environment, culturally, communication-wise. You know, it's difficult for outsiders to come in and get it. And I don't mean outsiders like just Ottawa or, you know, big city people. I mean other Albertans. You know, I think this is a beautiful place that has been, frankly, really founded on a diversity, especially a religious diversity. And when we think about change of, you know, new religions, more countries coming, more people from different countries coming, that's actually our past. So when people are uncomfortable with that change, for me, I'm also seeing, like, I understand the discomfort because, you know, we don't want to see something that isn't better, and we don't want to be left behind. It's natural to feel that. And I really feel for myself that I've found the Liberal Party has more reflected the idea that it is not going to leave people behind, while it also improves new parts of our country, like new aspects. How do we bring in new energy sources and mix with the old? How do we bring new cultures and build protections for everyone that work together so that we don't have a government that is dominated by one group over the other. We have so much work to do on, I think I don't want to just pay lip service to the work of Indigenous reconciliation. That is really going to be, that is kind of, I think, a generation, my generation, we need to really look in our hearts and feel what that means and look at history in a new way and think about that inclusion.
So with the opioid crisis and the safe injection site, it's affected a lot of businesses here because where it's located, those businesses have lost customers. In some cases, they've had to move, right?
Yeah.
Their business.
Some have.
Yeah, some have, exactly.
They tell me about
right?
it, and we've got residents that are having a hard time too.
Yeah.
We also cope. So let's dive into this, because this is something that I want to. First of all, I want to say, I haven't been hearing a lot federally in Lethbridge about how we could be working on this from a federal level to support this community's crisis. This is relatively devastating in Canada. This is one of the largest causes of death Canada's ever had in a sort of, this is a peaceful time, and people are dying. We've had, some 10,000 deaths from, my understanding, from opioid overdoses, and it's very unacceptable. It's reducing life expectancies, and that's, I'm not comfortable with the impact this has had on Lethbridge and how it's changing the shape of our community that has been safe, has been open, and we know that this is a challenge. They call it a wicked problem, and that means it crosses just all aspects: healthcare, education, families, everything. And so it's not an overnight wake up one day, one person has an answer. So I will not claim to be that person. But what I am hearing, like one of my jobs is that I go door to door and I knock on the doors and I ask people what they're thinking. And that's very rewarding and eye-opening. And so I'm going to speak a little bit of what I'm hearing. We've got the business community, as well as I have also been through the Arches facility on a tour and understood the work they're doing. It's the kind of approach I've been taking, is a listening and visiting and trying to understand, while I also do my own research on the policy side. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a social worker. I want to listen to those people with those expertise. I am a politician and somebody who has spent a fair bit of time learning about structures of governance and how you work to resolve issues within them. Okay. Bit wordy. Am I getting wordy on you?
No, you're fine.
So
That's great.
Here's the thing. It's, I think, first of all, my understanding is that it's a supervised consumption site that we have in Lethbridge.
Yes, it is.
So the concept of a safe injection site is, but the supervised consumption site, the Lethbridge facility is what unique in Canada. It allows for the use as well of my understanding of a smoking facility, which is a way to kind of channel to less harmful activities. I'm going to let the experts speak about that, but that's really neat that we have one of the most innovative facilities now. So that's a life-saving place. It's also a very difficult, heart-wrenching experience to understand the depth of this crisis. And what I would just like to say, first of all, is that this is about human beings, this is about survival, and I don't believe there's anyone who wants more death. I don't believe there's anybody who thinks that we are going to allow death to be what the answer is. So from that base of everyone agreeing that that's not acceptable, where are we going? And it's at the federal government level, I think we have seen actions that we can bring through better coordination through Lethbridge. And that includes additional funding for emergency programming, additional regulatory changes that allow the naloxone without a prescription to change sort of the criminalization framework, not decriminalizing the use of substances of all kinds, but to say in a life-saving situation, let's save a life, and that's important to me. We've also seen around the sort of borders of this country, where are these drugs coming from? That is huge. So expanding sort of, drug sniffing dogs so that we can make a better detection, expanding the border funding because that's key. And there were cuts to the border controls under Conservatives, and I don't know the direct relationship of those cuts to opioids entering, but I don't find it to be a good time to be cutting our border services, in particular as we're looking to ensure that we're not seeing fentanyl, carfentanil coming through that. At the local community level, we have businesses have been affected. The safety concerns are rising. I think in Maclean's we had very high crime rates, very high rates of increase of crime rates. And I want to hear from other candidates federally what they think is the answer. But what I want to start with is who's been talked to and who's been coordinating, who's been working on wraparound services that say, okay, what is the impact of having these facilities? We want lives saved. What is the impact of this, and what are the solutions? And this takes dialogue. This takes honesty. It takes getting together in a meaningful way with all of the stakeholders, including businesses who need to be heard, and residents who are seeing, like I go to these doors people are really, nervous. They're investing personally in enhanced security at their homes.
And they're worried about needles, their children getting into that, right? And so on the campaign trail, and let's say you're elected as the MP of Lethbridge, how would you address that situation in Ottawa so that Lethbridge gets heard in that sense? Because that is a real big issue in Lethbridge. We've had several discussions. City Hall, City Council has done that with residences and businesses, right? And businesses says, you know what, I'm going to close up my business. Nobody wants that, right?
No, absolutely.
Or people will go, well, we're going to move out of Lethbridge because this crisis is so bad.
Yes.
Right.
That is. So in all honesty, I'm not going to kind of stand before you and say I am the person who will solve this by myself.
Right.
And I think that's actually a great starting point, is saying, okay, it takes a village. We have action provincially. I think that it's a very challenging situation, and I don't think that any one party is going to want to see it worse, and they'll know that they need to take actions to prevent that. I've heard from some people that we don't have a rehab facility in the area. We don't have that kind of programming. We don't have adequate programming here for this, and the safer use of substances alone isn't resolving the issue. And yes, needles are concerning. They're also a symptom of why this needs to be deeply understood throughout. Everyone needs to become more aware, and those needles are scary for us, and we are worried about them. And it's a reminder of how deeply we are affected by this. Everyone is. So okay, that's sort of the, I feel. I feel things about this because I am sad for every resident. I am sad for every business, and I am, very sad when I go to doors and people are crying and telling me about their family members who have died.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they're not happy about the crime rates, and it's not simple. So I think what we do is we think about, okay, what actually are the needs? What resolves the issue? What helps with people getting off of that substance? What protects them if they're using, so that they are not going to pass away? And how do you move them through that? That, I'm going to say, it's not, saying the word jurisdiction is a bit of a, I know that every problem matters across all of them, but, the province is going to really take leadership there.
Yeah.
And as a federal representative, what we can do is ensure that we're working with the province on resolving that and making sure the funding is going through the right channels, that it's sort of matching up with the federal ideas, and also that the federal ideas are being shaped by what's happening there.
Yeah. No, and that's good. And you seem to have a good grasp of the issues that way. And being from Lethbridge, you said you feel that, and that's great. And I think that's what Lethbridge will connect with, because having somebody that lived here, grew up here, that feels about that, they feel that they will get heard, and that'll be good.
Yeah, I think,
Going
well, there's
forward.
more than being heard. There's
being addressed. Them being addressed.
There's being addressed.
Yeah.
And not every, what the role here is not to be liked or to become popular
Yeah.
or to stay sort of complacent with, well, if I don't say anything controversial or I don't push, on the issues that matter to Lethbridge, not just saying, angry things about other parties. Like I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
But, it's about good judgment and coordination and, sort of not saying things that are just going to be liked by
Right.
exactly who wants to hear them.
Right. And yeah, you're not going to please everybody, but that's just the way it is in life, right?
Right. So I would work to address what I'm hearing in a
Yeah.
coordinated, facilitated way.
Yeah.
So, everybody I meet every day, some people are mad at me, some people are mad at someone else and they think it's me, some people are happy and they're happy about something
Yeah.
that the Liberal Party has nothing to do with, and it's really beautiful to work through
Yeah.
that and increase my own knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think saying that, you said they're mad at somebody other than you, and it's because of the name of the prime minister, because of the history back there, right? So that's why it's always a sore spot, because Lethbridge, we've heard that before. Yes, we're going to address this issue, and then bang, it doesn't happen, right? And right, and there's that history there with Pierre Trudeau in the past as prime minister, right? And even on a liberal or on a provincial level, anything brought forth, it was kind of that friction there. And Lethbridge being staunchly agricultural, that came to the forefront, right? So it's great that you're addressing that issue, and they explained about that today. What would you do to get somebody to vote for you? Like, what would you say to sway their vote so that they will vote for what you stand for and what the Liberals stand for in this election?
I'm going to tell you that you should vote for, first of all, you have the choice of picking.
Yeah.
And I would recommend that you think about why you're voting for whom at the federal level. And, when we go, I know there's a history, there's a history everywhere of every party, and,
True.
different things are, people, I wasn't born when there was Pierre Elliott Trudeau was the prime minister, and I have sort of taken the initiative to understand and learn. It's very rather liberal of me, but I went and got a stack of books and I read about the actual, but not sort of the one academic version of it, but try and go back to the debates that happened when we had Confederation and read word for word what was being said in 1867, 1905, and ironically, so much of it is what we hear today. It's almost a script that just adjusts over hundreds of years on our concept of federalism. And I have found that I have taken the view that we are, as a federation, better together. And so the ability for a province to advocate on its issues and organize provincially is very powerful to create a better federation. So I would not say that we should stop critiquing, or that anyone here is asking you not to critique the Liberal Party or the Prime Minister or the Prime Ministers of the past, or to say who did better or worse. And that's important, and I want to encourage that research and dialogue in everyone. I also want to say it has been a challenge for me to say, okay, somebody's daddy was named such and such, and I don't think we in Lethbridge are really, in a culture that says, well, who was your father and what did they do, and that's how we're all going to judge you. So from my perspective, I have found the Liberal Party in its current form really resonates on many ways with me, because I think that one of Alberta's biggest challenges is economic diversification, and it's been a historical challenge, right? If we want to go back through history, like before it was oil, it was wheat.
Yep.
Right, and
thing,
do we or do we not have a resource curse as a province and as a region? Are we kind of an extractive part of our federation, or are we becoming ever more presently a big part of the dialogue that, and the economic, we're an economic powerhouse and hub of this country. And I think Lethbridge needs uniquely an economic region. So economically here, we have energy. It's potentially a little less linked directly to our kind of major oil and fossil fuel related resources, is not as much in our backyards. It is employing people. They often leave the community for that employment.
Yes. Right.
So what is Lethbridge without, Lethbridge is, I've noticed, and maybe you other Lethbridge folks have as well, that we have a lot of wind. If you've noticed.
Yeah, not so much as in years past, but yes, we are a wind city.
So we've got wind. Has anyone else noticed that we have some sun?
Yeah.
Okay, sunny. Okay, I'm not trying to be
we're actually
facetious here.
We actually have more sun in Lethbridge than any other province or a city in Alberta.
It's unfathomably sunny and windy.
Yeah.
Now, we also have agriculture, which has byproducts of agriculture, which can ferment into usable sources of energy.
Yes.
So I'm not trying to be silly here. I think as we increasingly are able to harness those energy sources, I'd like to be a little agnostic about what we consider an energy source and not say, energy is only one source or only fossil or only renewable. It's not. Let's look beyond that. And I think a job in energy is a job. If that's wind, people are going to do it. If it's solar, that's great. Now, I'm not saying overnight this is going to make us, sort of a boom town.
Right.
But it's worth asking the question of, is a policy that does not promote renewable energy right for Lethbridge?
Yeah.
Do you really want somebody fighting against renewable energy here?
Right.
Do you want to remove all of the government programs? Do you want to insult the industry? Do you want to see those companies leave, only for others? No, I think that's partly why I'm a liberal as well, is it's like, it's not about all the eggs in one basket.
Right. And I think that also in the past, which is hard for people to get over because they want less government because, then there's less regulations, they can make more money.
Mm-hmm.
But yet having those government regulations in place so that it doesn't get abused is the tough way to balance it. And, farmers in the past, growing up on the farm, I remember, trying to sell your grain. And, it was always this, the East, they don't care about us, they don't, and whether it's Lethbridge specifically or the province, they don't care about us out west here, right? We can say whatever, and it's just, whatever. It's like getting brushed off in a lot of ways. And my dad he farmed for many, many years. My grandpa did, right? And that's kind of what they felt because, the hard work they put in, and all of a sudden the grain prices are really low, but then, they can't get funding when they need it. They can't get this and that because it's like they're forgotten. And that was always a really, really sore spot, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think, this is a great prompt to kind of mention a little bit. I'm the first generation, sort of off the land in my family.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the beef industry. My father is a small business owner in the beef industry. So my childhood and youth, and I worked in my family's business in some aspects, right? And so seeing ranches and feedlots all over this region, all over southern Alberta, and visiting them, and as well, being actually in that primary industry myself and being employed in it, seeing the impacts of the BSE crisis, right? Like that resonates today, and we actually just saw the final restrictions lifted on Canadian beef exports in countries, 16 years or so later. And, for example, Japan now, we don't have those restrictions. So that's important diplomatic work that needs to be done by our government, sort of building those connections, and as well as continued ongoing renewed funding. The Liberal government has renewed funding to sort of make sure that we have the right things in place to prevent and understand BSE and compensate those who are kind of involved in making sure we don't see a resurgence of that or any we never had a we had one case, right, ages and ages ago, and so important. So, and on grain issues, my understanding is that there's sort of a critical review of sort of how a lot of the policies are working there. We can talk more about that another time, or I can spend time on that.
For
but
sure,
I think
for sure.
when it comes to agriculture and the idea that people don't care, I don't think it's that people don't care. I think it's that they don't necessarily understand. And when I haven't in my experiences, in elsewhere in Canada or around the world, found that people are not caring. I think they're not understanding, and that often looks like, well, I'm going to get it done for over here, right?
Yeah.
And I have not seen that to be, I think, so within understanding and better communicating, and that's what I want to do, and that's what I mean by putting Lethbridge first. I mean, let's talk about, through the party, getting through the government, and I'm in this party, like, how am I actively communicating every day of my campaign the value of this region, the importance of this region, and bringing attention. And I'm on the phone with people who work in all of the departments, the policy advisors on the political level. These are not like I'm connected into this government through my own ability to network and learn and find them, and they answer my questions, they talk me through things, and frankly I can let them know what's happening in Lethbridge, and that is step one, right? Like, I'm not getting anybody saying I don't care. I'm getting people saying, how do I care? How do I better care? How do I understand? And why does it matter? And if your politicians aren't articulating why it matters, and they just say, you don't care, therefore vote for me, that's your choice if that's what you're looking for. I'm going to tell you I'm not satisfied with that answer. And I am Albertan, and I understand that we have sometimes felt less included. And we also are very culturally different. We're a bit more brazen. We are outspoken. We can say a few things before we thought them through, and it's comfortable for us.
The redneck in us.
Well, I will say,
Just kidding.
but no, I say I'm sort of I'm culturally redneck, but not as practicing.
Right.
It's not like we don't have, I am, my family actively owns farms.
Yeah.
I'm not driving a tractor on it, and that's a process so many of us are going through, is leaving
Right.
a farm.
Right.
Are you actively farming?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
But you could get it done.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm not as swift with a lasso as some people, but
Exactly.
So I'd just say, like, look, like, I'm not here to tell you that everything's felt perfect for you if you're in the agriculture industry, or that you have felt heard. And I'm telling you, like, let's talk about what that actually means.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody is out there to reduce the role of agriculture in Canada. Agriculture is a massive economic driver. From my perspective, it has international security importance for our own country. I think we always have seen historically sovereignty questions come up when we talk about agriculture. Our ag exports are massively important to the world, and we know that when our diplomacy is so important. Sometimes people say, why is that prime minister not in our country? Well, maybe we're working on, maybe that's fair if you want, if that's your opinion. I'm also going to say we have a particular role. The federal level needs to define our place in the world and continue those relationships. We're not a big country. We're geographically enormous. We're not sort of the most powerful nation on the planet, but we are a loved and important one, and that's we
true.
have a role. So, yeah.
And I think that's important. And the fact that you have that background will help to get that message across to people that, yes, I'm putting Lethbridge first. I want that because, being growing up here, we're a family with the small businesses and the farming background really helps in that regard too, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and also, I think, yes, I have the agricultural background. I think that's so embedded. Almost anyone who's lived in Lethbridge for some time is going to have that. My mother grew up on a farm, a small farm, and then moved into the nursing profession. And I'll say as well that I've been very shaped by seeing what the hard work of our healthcare system is doing. Alberta Health Services, the healthcare industry is one of the largest employers in Lethbridge, and our public services in Lethbridge are our largest employers in many respects, right? So about 50% of this area is employed in the public sector.
Yeah.
So your friends, neighbors, your family are working for the government in some way, on average. And that's really important when we think about what governance is going to understand that aspect of our community.
Right.
Agriculture is, our other major employers are agri-processing, agriculture manufacturing. It's one of the largest, agriculture manufacturing is one of the largest manufacturing sectors in the country. It's an enormous contributor of jobs. I think GDP, it's not the highest. It is an enormous job contributor. And I've spoken with some of the folks in larger ag manufacturing operations in Lethbridge, and I've heard them tell me what they want to see done better to better understand their industry. And what I want to do is keep having those conversations with those agri-processing facilities, understand how we can keep them in Lethbridge, and get them really, seeing the value here of our very skilled labor force, our labor force that understands agriculture, that has it in our blood, that has it in the air. It's a good city to live in, and can we bring more of their operations here? Can we see expansion in their knowledge work? Do they understand that we have, in Alberta, we have great technology, research and skill sets that are really under, like Canada is a world leader in particular in artificial intelligence research.
True, yeah.
Edmonton is by some rankings third in the world.
Oh, wow.
How is Lethbridge tying into that, and how are we saying, like, let's do, and some people are nervous about artificial intelligence, and actively we are, like, the government is looking at that and making sure it's regulated, understanding kind of how it's going to impact us. But a lot of that kind of research really brings to the forefront the ability to do things with better understanding, better research.
Yeah, and that's great, and that's what we need. If you feel like you want to, anybody out there want to jump on board and become involved in Amy's campaign, you have a website, correct?
I do.
You'll learn more about her. How can they get involved in that to be able to campaign?
Thanks for asking. Thank you. That's great. Yeah. So if you want to get involved and learn about, sort of what is democracy at the door, I'll say, I know I started out as a volunteer about 5 years ago. I was excited in particular about Chrystia Freeland, our Foreign Affairs Minister. So she's one of the people who's inspired me. So I would say look for, if you want to work with me or volunteer with me, let's talk. If you find yourself inspired elsewhere, I'm going to encourage you to just, and this is my multi-partisan pitch for just democracy everywhere. Find out who is the candidate and how to volunteer. And what we do when we volunteer, there's a number of kind of volunteer aspects. You can canvass the doors and we talk to people, we learn about their issues and we document them. We also help them later to vote. So one of the other pieces is, you educate on civic engagement about getting to the poll.
Okay. If
If you need a ride to the poll, we try and make sure you get one. If you need some help with, making sure you vote at a time you've got babysitting, all that kind of thing.
Okay,
so
great.
that's part of it. We also make phone calls and do the same thing. And so you can go to amybronson.com/volunteer and get in touch. We're going to do that. And I think I want to tell people as well, I started out not sure about party politics. It's okay if you're not 100% comfortable with saying, I always believe in one party. I right now am very comfortable and confident in being a member of the Liberal Party and understanding my channels to better the party at all times with the work I do. But I've voted for different parties over the past, and so don't feel shy about any of that. Check it out and then sign up. We'll get in touch. One of the other things that's really key in Canadian politics is our fundraising is very different from it used to be, and it's also very different from the United States. We don't have corporate or union donations in Canada. It
That's
is
good to know.
only individual contributions, and they're only up to $1,600 to the local area per year, or $1,600 as well to the federal party, the overall party. So there are also tax credits for those.
Mhm. Wow,
So
okay.
we used to see kind of per vote reimbursements to parties. We don't have those now. Instead, we have pretty strong tax credits. So if you donate $400, for example,
Okay.
at tax time, you get 75% back.
Oh wow, that's a great incentive to do
So
that.
yeah, so if that's of interest, so I'll just let you know about that. So and we don't. It's very grassroots. It's very kind of make what you can happen. Follow all of the rules. I'm a very key proponent
Yeah,
of doing
yeah,
so. And so
yeah.
those are options. amybronson.com/volunteer or /donate.
And that's your website, right?
That's the website.
And you also have a Facebook page set up as well?
We're doing it all. We've got the
Okay, excellent,
socials,
excellent.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and
Excellent.
I am learning how to use them.
Okay, great. So how can they get involved on and contact the Facebook? What is that address?
You can go to Amy Bronson Campaign. That's for Facebook and Instagram. Give us a follow. It's all volunteer driven, so you can take a look.
Okay.
Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. So if you want to get involved, and that's the big thing, you want Lethbridge issues addressed, you have to get involved too. That's
Yeah.
the big thing. If you want that, get involved. Find out, if Amy is the team that you want to jump on or whatever,
Yeah.
as she said. But just get involved because that's the only way you can get your questions and your issues addressed.
Absolutely. It's about respect.
Mhm.
It's a labor of love, and it's about constant learning and working together as a team because Lethbridge needs to be put first.
Exactly. And that's your campaign slogan, Lethbridge First.
Well, maybe so, right?
Yeah.
Why not? Because
not?
I think we need really good choices, and Lethbridge has to be put first.
Excellent. And that is great because that's what Lethbridge needs. So if you feel that way, jump on with Amy or whatever, just get involved. Thank you for tuning in today, this Sunday morning, for taking your time to watch Feel the Beat with DJB here on Jess FM. We thank you for always tuning in. Thank you, Amy, for being here today, taking time out of
Thank
your
you so
schedule.
much for the time.
you're
This
welcome.
is my job.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you on. You addressed pertinent questions and stuff, and we found out about you, and that's important. So for the rest of the day, enjoy the sunlight, keep smiling, have fun, always be kind to each other. Do something kind for a complete stranger.
That's a great
You know how
idea.
It'll make you feel.
I'm going to do that today.
Yeah, it'll make you feel amazing. Thank you. DJB out.